Dad forgot to hang up the call, and I heard him say, "She's nothing, a failure, should have never been born." That's what my father really thought of me. All those years, I was the one covering the mortgage. I didn't shout. I didn't shed a tear. A week later, I sold my $830,000 luxury house and moved to another state. I left them behind, with no home at all. Dad was stunned when the new owners walked in. What if the people you'd sacrificed everything for saw you as nothing more than a living ATM, a pathetic failure who should have never been born? This isn't a hypothetical. It's the gut-wrenching truth I stumbled upon, a truth that shattered my world and forced me to reclaim my life. For years, the sleek, modern lines of my Chicago suburban home felt like a cage, gilded by my own ambition and sacrifice. Every morning, the relentless 5 a.m. alarm would drag me from bed, the scent of expensive coffee struggling to mask the underlying current of obligation that permeated my perfect, suffocating life. My name is Chloe Miller, and at 31, I'd meticulously built a life most people would envy. My days began with an intense workout in my basement home gym, followed by a protein smoothie and a quick shower. By 7:15, I was battling traffic, heading to my downtown office at Hartman Financial Advisors. My colleagues saw me as the epitome of success. After graduating with my MBA from Northwestern, I'd quickly climbed the corporate ladder, securing 3 promotions in 5 years. My boss, Eleanor Hayes, had even taken me under her wing. "Chloe, you're going places in this company," she'd tell me. "Your dedication is exactly what we value." What they didn't see was the unspoken burden waiting for me back home. 3 years prior, I'd purchased my dream house, a stunning 4-bedroom colonial, valued at $830,000. I'd envisioned living there alone, maybe one day with a partner. But within 2 months, my parents, Frank and Brenda Miller, had moved in. Frank's construction business had gone bankrupt for the second time. "It's just temporary, sweetheart," Mom had assured me, "just until we get back on our feet." 3 years later, they were still there. And I was still paying for everything. The mortgage, utilities, groceries, their cell phone bills, even car insurance. They contributed nothing, not even a token amount. Frank spent his days applying for jobs he never seemed to get, while Brenda volunteered at church and met friends for lunch. Every Wednesday evening, my sister Jessica would bring her 3 kids over for dinner. She'd married her high school boyfriend, David, young, had her first child at 21, and dropped out of community college. Despite this, my parents absolutely beamed when she arrived. "There's our girl," Frank would say, embracing Jessica while barely acknowledging my presence. After these dinners, I'd retreat to my home office, exhaustion heavy in my bones. The weight of supporting everyone was crushing, but I'd convinced myself it was my duty. I was the successful one, after all. This was what good daughters did. My best friend, Maya Adams, never understood. "Chloe, they're taking advantage of you," she'd insist during our rare lunch dates. "They're adults. They should be supporting themselves." "They're my parents," I'd reply, the familiar defense automatic. "Dad's still looking for work, and Mom never had a career. What am I supposed to do? Throw them out?" Maya would just shake her head, knowing it was pointless. She'd known me since college, watched me achieve every goal, only to hand over the rewards to my family. That Wednesday, I had a massive presentation for a potential new client, a retirement fund worth millions. Eleanor had entrusted me with the lead, a clear sign she was grooming me for the next level. "Land this account, and we'll be talking about that senior analyst position," she'd promised. As I straightened my blazer, I caught sight of my father in the kitchen, scrolling on his phone. "Big day today, Dad," I said, trying to inject some enthusiasm. "Wish me luck." He barely looked up. "Sure, honey. Good luck." I drove to work, pushing down the familiar sting of disappointment. Today was about my career, about proving to Eleanor and myself that I deserved that promotion. Today was about my future. Little did I know how drastically that future was about to change. The presentation soared. The clients were engaged, insightful. By the end, they were nodding along. Eleanor gave me a subtle thumbs up. The CEO of the retirement fund shook my hand firmly. "Miss Miller, you've clearly done your homework. We'll be in touch very soon." After they left, Eleanor pulled me aside. "That was excellent work, Chloe. Take the rest of the day off. You've earned it." Excitement bubbled in my chest. I couldn't wait to share the news. And despite everything, my parents were the first people I thought of. Maybe this time, Frank would actually be proud. I checked my watch, 2:30 p.m. They wouldn't expect me for hours, so I could surprise them with the good news and maybe even suggest celebrating with dinner. When I pulled into the driveway, both their cars were there. Unusual for a Wednesday, Brenda usually had her book club. I entered quietly through the side door leading to the kitchen, planning my grand announcement. But then I heard Frank's voice, clear as day, from his bedroom, which he'd converted into a home office. He was on a video call. "Yeah, Arthur, we're still living with her. What choice do we have? The housing market is ridiculous these days." I recognized the voice on the other end as Arthur Bennett, my father's friend from his construction days. I was about to call out when something in Frank's tone made me pause. "Hold on, let me end this call properly. Chloe's always nagging me about just hitting the red button." I heard a click, then Frank's voice again. "There, now we can talk freely." Except he hadn't ended the call. I could still hear Arthur asking if he was there. Frank had only minimized the window, thinking he'd disconnected. "She's nothing, Arthur. A failure. Should have never been born." The words hit me like a physical blow. I froze in the hallway, unable to move, unable to breathe. "Sure, she makes good money," my father continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "But what kind of life is that? 31 and still single, married to her job. It's pathetic. And she lords it over us like we should be grateful she's letting us live here." Arthur replied, his voice tinny, "At least you've got a roof over your head." "Yeah, but at what cost?" "My dignity. Do you know how embarrassing it is when people ask what I do and I have to admit my daughter supports me? It's humiliating." "What about Jessica? She doing okay?" Frank's voice immediately softened, pride evident. "Now there's my real achievement. 3 beautiful grandkids. A solid marriage. Sure, she didn't go to some fancy college like Chloe, but she's got what matters. A family. Love. David's business is doing well enough. They're talking about buying a bigger house soon." I heard the bedroom door open, and my mother's voice joined the conversation. "Who are you talking to, Frank?" "Just Arthur. We were discussing the girls." "Oh." Brenda's voice grew quieter as she moved closer. "Did you tell him about Chloe's promotion? The one she won't stop talking about." "What's there to tell? Another rung on the corporate ladder. Big deal." Brenda sighed. "Sometimes I wonder where we went wrong with her. So cold, so focused on money and status. Not like our Jessica." "Exactly." Frank agreed. "The only good thing about living here is we're saving a fortune. Another year or 2 and we can afford to put a down payment on a place near Jessica and the kids." "That's the dream," Brenda agreed. "I'm tired of walking on eggshells around Chloe, pretending to be interested in her work stories. Remember last Christmas when she gave us those expensive watches?" Frank laughed. "Like we needed a reminder of how much money she has. So tasteless." My stomach lurched. Those watches had cost me $3,000. I'd spent weeks researching the perfect style, wanting to give them something special that would last. "Well, we'll just keep playing the game for now," Brenda said. "She needs us more than we need her, even if she doesn't realize it. Without us, who does she have? No husband, no kids. Just that awful friend Maya who keeps putting ideas in her head." "True." Frank chimed in. "Remember when Maya convinced her to take that trip to Cabo instead of helping us with the bathroom remodel? Selfish, both of them. I'd canceled that trip at the last minute after my father complained about needing help with house projects. I'd lost the deposit and used my vacation days to paint and tile instead." The conversation continued, but I couldn't bear to hear more. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Nausea swept over me in waves. I backed away silently, grateful I'd worn flats. Somehow, I made it back to my car without being detected. As I sat behind the wheel, my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't insert the key. Fragments of their conversation echoed in my mind. A failure. Should have never been born. My real achievement. Saving a fortune. The girl they wished had never existed was bankrolling their comfortable retirement. I don't remember driving to Maya's apartment. I must have operated on autopilot, muscle memory guiding me through familiar streets while my mind replayed 31 years of memories in a harsh new light. The times my academic achievements were met with distracted nods, while Jessica's C+ in art was displayed proudly. The college graduation party they left early from because Jessica's son had a cold. The countless times they'd needed loans that were never repaid. By the time I parked outside Maya's building, my shock had hardened into something cold, clear, and certain. For the first time in my life, I saw my family exactly as they were, not as I desperately wanted them to be. They said what? Maya's voice echoed through her apartment as I recounted what I'd overheard. Her normally calm demeanor had given way to pure rage on my behalf, her hands gesticulating wildly as she paced. "You need to confront them right now," she insisted, reaching for her phone. "I'll drive you back there myself." I shook my head, curling deeper into the couch. I can't go back there tonight. I can't look at them knowing what they really think of me. Maya sat beside me, taking my trembling hands. "Then stay here as long as you need." The initial shock wore off, leaving room for a flood of memories. Moments I'd dismissed or rationalized away, now returning with painful clarity. Like the time I'd used my entire first year-end bonus, $15,000, to pay off the remaining debts from my father's failed business. He'd accepted the check with a casual, "Thanks, kiddo," before immediately calling Jessica to discuss her eldest son's private school applications. Or the European vacation I'd planned for years, postponed 3 times to cover family emergencies. The first for Frank's knee surgery, which somehow didn't prevent him from playing golf 2 weeks later. The second for Brenda's minor car accident, which required a replacement vehicle they couldn't afford. The third for Jessica's unexpected medical bills. When I finally moved into my house, the crown jewel of my achievements, they'd shown up 3 weeks later with suitcases and sad stories about their landlord selling their rental property. I'd given them the master bedroom, moving my things to the smaller guest room. My privacy, my space, my sanctuary, surrendered without a fight because that's what daughters do. "I've defended him so many times," I whispered, recalling conversations with colleagues who'd questioned my father's business acumen after meeting him at company events. People would ask why he kept failing, and I'd make excuses. "Bad economy, dishonest partners, bad luck." "Because you're loyal," Maya said firmly. "That's not a character flaw, Chloe." My phone buzzed with a text from Grace Parker, my assistant. "Great job today. Eleanor's thrilled. Did you go homesick? Let me know if you need anything." I'd completely forgotten about the presentation's success. It seemed trivial now, overshadowed by the revelation that had upended my world. "My whole identity has been built around being the good daughter," I said, the realization settling heavily. The responsible one, the successful one. But they never wanted that. They wanted me to be Jessica. Maya snorted. "Jessica, who can barely keep a job and relies on her husband's family business to survive? That Jessica." "They don't see it that way," I sighed. "They see her children, her marriage, the normal life I've never had because I've been too busy working to support everyone." As night fell, I found myself scrolling through property laws on my phone, researching homeowner rights. The house was solely in my name. They had no legal claim to it, no right to stay if I asked them to leave. The thought sent a strange mixture of guilt and liberation coursing through me. The next morning, Maya used her connections to get me an emergency session with her therapist, Dr. Evelyn Richardson. "What you're describing is a profound betrayal," Dr. Richardson said after I'd recounted the previous day's events. "It's normal to feel disoriented, angry, even grief-stricken. You're mourning the parents you thought you had." "I keep wondering if I should just confront them," I admitted, scream at them, make them understand how much they've hurt me. She leaned forward slightly. "Would that give you what you need?" I considered the question. "No," I finally said. "They'd deny it or minimize it or turn it around on me somehow. They always do." "Then what would give you what you need?" The answer came with surprising clarity. "Freedom. I need to be free of them. Of the obligation, the guilt, the constant striving for approval I'm never going to get." "And how might you achieve that freedom?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I found myself mentally calculating numbers, my savings, the house's value, the cost of starting over somewhere new, somewhere without the weight of familial expectations crushing me daily. By the time I left Dr. Richardson's office, a plan was forming. Not a confrontation, but an exit strategy. I would not give them the satisfaction of my anger or my tears. I would simply remove myself from the equation of their lives as cleanly and completely as possible. That night, staying at Maya's again, I created a detailed spreadsheet. Steps to take, calls to make, research to complete. By dawn, I had a comprehensive exit plan mapped out, a timeline for extracting myself from the life I built around people who had never truly wanted me in theirs. As I finally drifted off to sleep, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the lightness of a decision made, a path forward clear. For once, I would put myself first, and I wouldn't apologize for it. For the first time in my entire career, I called in sick. Eleanor was understanding. "You've banked enough goodwill to take a month off if you needed to," she said, concern coloring her voice. I assured her it was just a 24-hour bug. The lie tasted strange. I'd always been pathologically honest, especially at work. But now, deception came easily. Perhaps I'd learned from the best. My first call was to Jason Michaels, my financial advisor. "I need an emergency meeting," I explained, hearing the urgency in my own voice. "Chloe, I can see you at 11. Is everything okay?" "It will be," I replied, surprised by my own certainty. Jason's office was on the 30th floor, all glass and chrome. As I explained my situation, sanitized without the emotional details, his expression remained professionally neutral. "So, you want to liquidate some investments to purchase a new property in another state while simultaneously selling your current home," he clarified. "Yes. I need to know how much I can access quickly without penalties and what the tax implications will be." He typed rapidly. "You're in a strong position. The market's favorable for sellers right now, especially in your neighborhood. What locations are you considering?" "Denver," I said, the decision made somewhere between Maya's apartment and his office. I've always loved the mountains. By the time I left, I had a clear picture of my finances and a referral to a real estate agent specializing in quick sales for professional clients. Sarah Wells called me before I'd even reached my car. "I understand you're looking for a discreet, expedited sale," she said. "No preamble necessary. I can be at your property this afternoon." "Not today," I replied quickly. "My parents are home. Tomorrow morning would be better. They have a standing breakfast with friends on Fridays." "Parents living with you?" she asked, her tone shifting. "Are they co-owners?" "No, the property is solely in my name." "Good. That simplifies things considerably." My next call was to Olivia Johnson, a Denver real estate agent recommended by Sarah. She specialized in relocating professionals and understood my need for discretion. "I can start sending you virtual tours today," she assured me. "Based on your budget and preferences, I already have several properties in mind." The lawyer came next, Sophia Alvarez, a referral from a colleague. She confirmed what I suspected. As sole owner, I had every right to sell. "You'll need to follow proper eviction procedures if they refuse to leave voluntarily," she cautioned. But given the circumstances, I doubt it will come to that. By mid-afternoon, the framework of my new life was taking shape. I drove back to my house, timing my arrival for when Brenda would be at her weekly hair appointment. Frank was likely in the basement, where he'd set up a makeshift workshop for projects he never completed. I slipped into my bedroom and began methodically sorting through my personal items. Important documents went into a secure portfolio. Jewelry and small valuables were packed into a carry-on suitcase I could easily transport to Maya's. In the back of my closet, I found a box of childhood mementos. Diaries with little locks, school awards, photographs. I opened one diary from when I was 12. "Dad forgot my science fair today. Mom said he was too busy with work, but I saw him watching TV when I got home. Jessica got a new bike for getting a B in math. I got all A's again, but no one noticed." Page after page documented small betrayals, moments of favoritism so normal to my childhood self that I'd recorded them matter-of-factly. In another box, I found handmade gifts, a clay pencil holder for Frank, a beaded necklace for Brenda. Both dusty and unused, stored away rather than displayed. As I was carefully replacing these boxes, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Chloe, are you okay? Mom said you didn't come home last night." I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Jessica and I had never been close. The age gap and our parents' obvious favoritism created a chasm. But she wasn't cruel, just self-absorbed in the way people can be when they've always been the center of attention. "I'm staying with Maya for a few days," I said finally. "I need some space." "Space from what? Did something happen?" We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. I wasn't ready to tell her everything, but I needed to gauge her reaction, to see if she'd been part of their conversations. The cafe was busy, providing both ambient noise for privacy and enough witnesses to prevent a scene. Jessica arrived looking harried, her blonde hair, so like our mother's, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd always been the pretty one, the charming one, while I was the smart one, a distinction that felt more like a consolation prize than a compliment. "What's going on?" she asked. "Mom's freaking out. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown." "I'm selling the house," I said bluntly, watching her face. Her eyes widened. "What? Why? You love that house." "I'm moving to Denver. I've already started the process." "Denver? But what about Mom and Dad? Where will they go?" There it was. Her first thought was for our parents, not for me. But there was genuine confusion in her expression, not calculation. "They'll figure it out," I said, my voice steady. "But they can't afford their own place right now. Dad's still looking for work, and Mom's never had a real job." "I'm aware," I replied, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "I've been supporting them completely for 3 years, paying the mortgage, utilities, groceries, everything." "Did you know that?" She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I knew you were helping them out." "Helping implies they contribute something." "They don't." Jessica fidgeted with her coffee cup. "Look, I would help if I could, but with 3 kids and David's business just getting established." "I'm not asking you to help," I interrupted. "I'm telling you what's happening. I'm selling my house and moving away because of Mom and Dad." "Did they do something?" For a moment, I considered telling her everything. But looking at her worried face, I realized she truly didn't know. She'd been shielded from the darker side of our parents, cushioned by their unconditional love. "I need a change," I said instead. "The house will sell quickly. They'll need to find their own place." "They could stay with us temporarily," she offered, though without enthusiasm. "The guest room is small, but that's between you and them." I stood up, signaling the end. "I just wanted you to know directly from me." As I walked away, she called after me, "Chloe, wait. Are you okay?" "Really?" I turned back, surprised by the genuine concern. For a brief moment, I saw past the golden child persona to the sister who had once, long ago, defended me against Frank's criticism when I'd broken his favorite coffee mug. "I will be," I answered honestly. That afternoon, I had a video interview with Westbrook Financial in Denver. Leveraging connections from a conference, the hiring manager, Samuel Clark, remembered me well. "We'd be lucky to have someone with your expertise, Chloe. The team lead position just opened last month." Perfect timing. Perfect timing indeed. As if the universe was finally aligning to help me break free. My final call of the day was to Eleanor. "Denver," she repeated after I'd explained. "That's unexpected. We have a satellite office there, you know. Not as prestigious as Chicago, but growing. Would you consider a transfer instead of resignation?" The offer took me by surprise. "You'd help me transfer?" "Chloe, you're one of our top performers. I'd rather keep you in the Hartman family, even if it's from a distance. Think about it. Let me know by Monday." As I ended the call, I realized I'd accomplished more in one day toward my own happiness than I had in years of striving to please my parents. The irony wasn't lost on me. It took discovering their true feelings to finally prioritize my own. That evening, I returned home for dinner, watching my parents through new eyes as they discussed their day, complained about neighbors, asked perfunctory questions about my illness. I answered pleasantly, passed the potatoes, and excused myself early, claiming fatigue. In my room, I continued preparations, transferring documents to secure cloud storage, researching moving companies, creating new bank accounts they couldn't access. With each step, the fog of obligation and guilt began to lift. In its place was something unfamiliar but welcome, determination, uncomplicated by the need for approval. 1 week later, my house was officially on the market. Sarah had worked miracles, arranging for professional staging and photography while my parents were out. The listing went live on Thursday evening, described as a luxury family home in prestigious neighborhood, priced to sell quickly. "We'll hold an open house this Sunday," Sarah informed me. "Based on comparable properties and current market conditions, I expect multiple offers by Monday morning." I nodded, scrolling through the listing photos. The house looked beautiful, spacious, bright, devoid of the tension that had filled it in recent months. "I'll make sure my parents are out during the open house." "About that," Sarah hesitated. "Have you told them yet?" "They'll find out soon enough." The soon enough came that very evening. I arrived home to find Frank standing in the driveway, arms crossed, face thunderous. Beside him, Brenda wrung her hands, her expression oscillating between hurt and anger. "What the hell is this?" Frank demanded, pointing to the for sale sign Sarah had installed. I walked past him, unlocking the front door with steady hands. "It's exactly what it looks like. I'm selling the house." They followed me inside, Brenda's voice rising to a pitch I recognized from childhood tantrum management. "You can't just sell our home without discussing it with us first." I set my briefcase down carefully. "It's not our home. It's my home. My name is on the deed, the mortgage, and every utility bill. I've made every payment for 3 years. So that gives you the right to throw your own parents out on the street?" Frank's face was turning the dangerous shade of red that had intimidated me since childhood. But I wasn't a child anymore. "I'm selling a property I own. What you do next is up to you." Brenda stepped between us, tears already forming. "Chloe, sweetheart, what's gotten into you? Is this about work? Are you under too much stress?" "This isn't an impulsive decision," I replied, my voice level. "The house has been professionally staged and photographed. The listing went live last night. There's an open house scheduled for Sunday." "Sunday?" "This Sunday." Frank sputtered. "Where are we supposed to go?" "I've made reservations for brunch at the Drake. My treat. We should be gone from 11 to 3. Brenda's tears dried instantly. "You expect us to go to brunch while strangers walk through our home?" "My home," I corrected again. "And yes, that's exactly what I expect." Frank pulled out his trump card. "I'm calling Jessica. She'll talk some sense into you." I shrugged, the gesture so foreign to my usual accommodating body language that they both stared. "Call whoever you want." An hour later, we were seated in my living room in a twisted parody of a family meeting. Jessica had arrived, kids in tow, David trailing behind, looking uncomfortable. The children had been dispatched to the backyard, leaving the adults to what Frank ominously called sorting this mess out. "Chloe," Jessica began, clearly designated as the mediator. "I understand you're going through something, but selling the house seems extreme." "It's not extreme. It's a practical decision. I'm moving to Denver for a new job opportunity." David, who had always been peripheral to family dynamics, spoke up unexpectedly. "Denver is a great market right now. Growing tech sector, outdoor lifestyle. Smart move, professionally." Frank shot him a glare that could have melted steel. "Not helpful, David. Just saying. Career-wise, it makes sense." Brenda ignored this tangent. "But why so suddenly? Why not give us time to find a place, get organized? The closing will be in 30 days. That's standard. You have a month to make arrangements." "A month?" Frank exploded. "To find an apartment, pack everything in this rental market? It's impossible. I managed to organize selling a house and relocating to another state in a week," I pointed out. "I'm sure between the two of you, finding a local apartment in a month is doable." Jessica looked between us, clearly struggling with divided loyalties. "Mom, Dad, Chloe does have the right to sell her own house. Maybe we should focus on helping you find a new place." Frank's betrayed expression would have been comical if it weren't so predictable. "You're taking her side." "I'm not taking sides. I'm being practical. If the house is for sale, you need somewhere to live." The conversation deteriorated from there, with my parents cycling through anger, guilt-tripping, and finally, bargaining. "Just give us 3 months," Brenda pleaded. "Until after the holidays." "The market is hot right now," I replied. Waiting would be financially irresponsible. Frank snorted. Since when do you care about money more than family? The irony of his statement hung in the air. If only he knew how his own words about me had set this all in motion. But I held my tongue, refusing to give away the knowledge that fueled my resolve. By Sunday, the tension was unbearable. My parents had shifted to cold silence, a tactic they'd employed throughout my childhood when I disappointed them. We drove to brunch in complete silence. At the Drake, I received a text from Sarah. Huge turnout. At least 40 parties so far. Several very interested. Monday morning brought news that exceeded even Sarah's optimistic projections. We have 7 offers, she announced. The highest is $875,000, all cash, 21-day close, minimal contingencies. Accept it, I said without hesitation. Are you sure? We could counter, maybe push them to $885,000. The speed is more important to me than squeezing out another $10,000. By the time I returned home, I had a signed purchase agreement and a closing date, June 17th, exactly 3 weeks away. The buyers had waived the inspection contingency, requiring only a standard appraisal. Meanwhile, Olivia in Denver had found me a perfect apartment, a 2-bedroom with mountain views, downtown, walking distance to my new office. I can hold it with a deposit, she said. It'll be available June 20th if that timing works for you. 3 days after closing. Just enough time to drive from Chicago to Denver with whatever possessions I decided to keep. The next phase was sorting and packing. I hired Maria Bennett, a professional organizer who specialized in downsizing. Think of it as curating your life, she suggested. Keep only what serves your new chapter. Together, we created 3 categories: keep, sell/donate, and discard. My wardrobe was ruthlessly edited. Furniture that wouldn't fit in my new apartment was consigned. Books were boxed for donation. My colleague Grace volunteered to help one weekend. Eleanor's in denial, she confided as we wrapped framed photographs. She keeps telling everyone you'll change your mind. Not a chance, I replied, carefully packing a photo of my college graduation, the only one where both my parents appeared genuinely proud. Had that been real, or just for the camera? As we worked, memories surfaced of my ex-boyfriend, Daniel, who'd never understood my family dynamics. You drop everything whenever they call, he'd complained. It's like you're their parent, not the other way around. I'd ended things shortly after, convinced he was selfish. Now, I wondered if he'd seen what I'd been blind to all along. By the second week, the house was half-packed, my life sorted into neat, labeled boxes. The Denver job offer had been formalized with a generous relocation package. Eleanor had reluctantly processed my transfer, extracting a promise that I'd train my replacement. My parents' efforts to find their own place had been half-hearted. Frank made a show of circling apartment listings, but complained everything was too expensive or too small. Brenda mentioned moving in with Jessica temporarily, with increasing frequency, despite Jessica's obvious reluctance during our family calls. 3 days before closing, I returned home to find them waiting for me in the living room. Jessica was beside them, looking uncomfortable. The formal arrangement of furniture, them on the sofa, a chair positioned opposite, made it clear this was an intervention. We need to talk, Frank began, using the authoritative tone that had once sent me scrambling to please him. This has gone far enough. Far enough, I repeated, setting my purse down but remaining standing. The movers come tomorrow. The closing is in 3 days. This isn't a negotiation. Chloe, please sit down, Brenda said, patting the chair they'd positioned like defendants before a judge. We're worried about you. Jessica nodded, her expression conflicted. We just want to understand what's happening. This isn't like you. I sat, crossing my legs, folding my hands in my lap, the poised professional, even amidst family drama. What exactly isn't like me? Making a career decision? Moving to a new city? Millions of people do these things every day. Abandoning your family without warning, Frank clarified, his jaw tight. Throwing your parents out of their home. It's not abandonment, it's relocation, and it's not their home. It's mine. Jessica winced at my tone. But I continued, I've given you 3 weeks' notice, which is more than fair. Fair. Brenda's voice rose, tears gathering. She'd always been able to cry on command, a skill I'd both envied and resented. After everything we've done for you. The question hung in the air, so absurd, I almost laughed. Everything they'd done for me. What exactly did they think that entailed? Mom, Jessica interjected gently. Maybe we should focus on solutions. Chloe has made her decision about the house. Frank wasn't ready to concede. No daughter who respected her parents would do this. It's selfish and ungrateful. I expected better from you, Chloe. You've always been a disappointment, but this takes it to a new level. There it was. A disappointment. The same word he'd used with Arthur, not knowing I could hear. The final thread of my restraint snapped. A disappointment, I repeated, my voice deadly calm. Like when you told Arthur I was nothing, a failure, should have never been born? The color drained from Frank's face. Beside him, Brenda went completely still. That's right, I continued, my eyes locked on his. 3 weeks ago, you forgot to hang up your call properly. I heard everything. Every word about how pathetic I am. How embarrassed you are to live with me. How Jessica is your real achievement while I'm just the ATM funding your comfortable retirement. Jessica's gasp was audible. Dad, what is she talking about? Frank recovered quickly, his expression shifting to defensive indignation. You were eavesdropping on a private conversation. I came home early to share good news about a client presentation. You were broadcasting your conversation through the whole house because you can't operate video call software properly. You clearly misunderstood. Brenda interjected, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. Whatever you think you heard, I heard you too, Mom. Joining in about how cold I am. How focused on money and status. How you're tired of walking on eggshells around me and pretending to be interested in my work stories. How the expensive Christmas watches I bought you were tasteless. How you're both just playing the game until you can afford to move near Jessica. Brenda's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. Beside her, Frank switched tactics. Everyone vents sometimes, Chloe. You're taking things out of context. Of course, we appreciate everything you do for us. Do you? I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder I'd prepared for this moment, though I hadn't been sure it would come. Let me show you what everything looks like. I removed a spreadsheet, sliding it across the coffee table toward them. This is a complete accounting of what I've spent supporting you both for the past 3 years. Mortgage payments, $14,236. Groceries and household expenses, $28,500. Car insurance, cell phone bills, medical expenses not covered by Medicare, $22,375. Home repairs and improvements, $31,900. I turned to a second page, plus the loans that were never repaid. Dad's new truck after the bankruptcy, $42,000. Mom's cosmetic dental work, $8,400. The Florida vacation last winter, $6,700. Jessica's children's private school application fees that you insisted on covering, $3,600. Jessica's head snapped up. What? They told me you offered to pay those. I did, after they pressured me. Just like I've been secretly funding your children's college accounts for the past 5 years. $500 a month automatically transferred. That's $30,000 they haven't bothered to tell you about. The look of shock on her face confirmed what I'd suspected. Our parents had taken credit for my financial contributions to her children's future, just as they'd taken credit for my success when it suited them. You've been supporting us, yes, Frank acknowledged grudgingly. But that's what family does. We raised you, put you through college. My scholarships and student loans put me through college, I corrected, which I paid off myself. As for raising me, let's talk about that. I turned to Jessica. Did you know Dad missed my high school graduation because Liam had a dance recital the same day? Jessica frowned. That's not how they explained it to me. They said you told them not to come because you were embarrassed about Dad's bankruptcy. Of course, that's what they told you. I shook my head. Years of collected slights and dismissals suddenly crystallizing into a clear pattern. They've been playing us against each other our whole lives, making you the golden child and me the responsible one, ensuring we never compared notes. Brenda stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We've always loved both our daughters equally. Really? Then why did you tell Arthur that Jessica is Dad's real achievement while I'm just a pathetic workaholic? Why did you spend more on Jessica's prom dress than you did on my entire college dorm setup? Why have you attended every single one of her children's birthday parties, but forgot mine for 3 years running? The silence that followed was deafening. Frank stared at the spreadsheet, seemingly unable to dispute the concrete evidence. Brenda had given up on tears and was now looking at me with something close to hatred. Her mask of maternal concern completely dropped. I don't expect answers, I continued, gathering the papers. I don't even want them anymore. What I want is for you to understand exactly why I'm leaving. It's not about the money. It's about the decades of emotional manipulation and favoritism. It's about discovering that the people I've sacrificed everything for see me as nothing but a convenient resource. I turned to Jessica, whose expression had shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension. I don't blame you. You didn't create the dynamic. They did. But I'm done with it. What about us? Frank finally asked, gesturing between himself and Brenda. Where are we supposed to go in 3 days? That's not my problem anymore. I've accepted a position with Westbrook Financial in Denver. I'm leaving the day after closing. You can't just abandon us. Brenda insisted, panic replacing anger. We're your parents. Being a parent is more than biology, I said. It's support, encouragement, and love. Things I've given you far more of than I've ever received. I stood up, signaling the end. You can stay until closing day. After that, you're on your own. Jessica rose as well, her expression troubled. Mom, Dad, maybe you could stay with us for a little while until you find a place? The speed with which they pivoted to their backup plan was almost impressive. Brenda's tears returned on cue as she embraced Jessica. Oh, sweetheart. We wouldn't want to impose. It's fine, Jessica said, though her tone suggested it was anything but. The guest room is small, but it's just temporary. I caught her eye over our mother's shoulder, and for the first time in our adult lives, I felt a moment of true connection with my sister, a shared recognition of the manipulation we'd both been subject to in different ways. She gave me a small sad nod. As they discussed logistics, I quietly left the room. There was nothing more to say. The truth had been laid bare, the decision made. In 3 days, I would close this chapter of my life and begin writing a new one on my own terms, without the weight of unrequited family obligation dragging me down. Closing day arrived with a sense of finality that was both terrifying and liberating. I met Sarah at the title company's office, signing document after document. When the final paper was processed, she handed me a cashier's check for $823,450, the sale price, minus the remaining mortgage balance and closing costs. Congratulations, she said, shaking my hand. Most of my clients are sad on closing day. But you look relieved. I am, I admitted. It's a fresh start. My parents had moved out the previous day, reluctantly relocating to Jessica's guest room, just until we find the perfect place. They'd taken far more than their personal belongings, kitchen appliances I'd purchased, the new living room furniture, even bathroom fixtures that should have stayed with the house. I let it go. The material things seemed insignificant compared to the emotional baggage I was leaving behind. After the closing, I returned to the empty house for one final walkthrough. Each room held memories, some good, many tainted now by the knowledge of my parents' true feelings. The kitchen, where I'd prepared countless family meals. The dining room, where I'd endured subtle criticisms. The home office, where I'd overheard the conversation that changed everything. I was standing in my old bedroom when Jessica arrived alone. I thought you might be here, she said, hovering in the doorway. The kids are with David's mom. I wanted to help with any last-minute things. I'm all packed, I replied, gesturing to the bare room. The movers took everything yesterday. She nodded, stepping further inside. I'm sorry, Chloe. About all of it. I had no idea they felt that way about you. I know, I assured her. It's not your fault. But I benefited from it, she acknowledged, surprising me with her insight. My whole life, I got the praise, the attention, the support. I never questioned why. Because it was normal to you. Why would you question it? We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of shared history between us. Are we going to stay in touch? She finally asked. After you move. I'd like to, I said honestly. You and the kids. We can video chat, figure out a new relationship without them in the middle. She smiled tentatively. I'd like that too. Together, we walked through the house one last time. At the front entrance, I handed her the spare key. Take care of yourself in Denver, she said, embracing me awkwardly. We'd never been physically affectionate siblings. Take care of yourself with them, I replied. Don't let them do to you what they did to me. Maya was waiting in her car when I emerged, ready for our 2-day road trip to Denver. We'd planned it as an adventure, a cleansing journey from my old life to the new. Ready? She asked as I slid into the passenger seat. More than you know. As Chicago receded in the rearview mirror, the tension I'd carried for years began to dissolve. We crossed state lines, singing along to playlists, stopping at quirky roadside attractions, talking about everything and nothing. With each mile, I felt lighter, more myself. Denver welcomed us with stunning mountain views and clear blue skies. My new apartment was everything Olivia had promised. Modern, spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the distant Rockies. The furnishings I'd kept fit perfectly. This place is gorgeous, Maya declared as we uncorked a bottle of champagne that first night. To new beginnings, she said. To freedom, I countered, clinking my glass against hers. Maya stayed for a week, helping me settle in, before flying back to Chicago. Her departure was bittersweet, my only connection to my old life returning to it. But I wasn't alone for long. My new position at Westbrook Financial began the following Monday. The team welcomed me warmly, and the work itself was engaging. My boss, Rachel Evans, had a management style that emphasized results over FaceTime, a refreshing change. 1 month into my new life, I was establishing routines. Morning runs in a nearby park, weekend hikes in the foothills, evenings spent reading or exploring my new city. My apartment was taking shape, a true reflection of my tastes, without accommodation for anyone else's preferences. The phone call from Jessica came on a Sunday afternoon. How's Denver? She asked. It's wonderful, I replied truthfully. How are things there? Her hesitation told me everything. Challenging. Mom and Dad are still with us. They've looked at a few apartments, but always find reasons why they won't work. Let me guess. Too small, too expensive, wrong neighborhood. Exactly. She sighed. And they're not contributing. David is getting frustrated. They did the same thing to me, I reminded her gently. It's a pattern. I know. She paused. I feel guilty even complaining to you about it after what you went through. Don't. We're both their daughters, just in different roles. After we hung up, I felt a momentary pang of guilt. Had I simply shifted their burden from my shoulders to Jessica's? But I reminded myself that Jessica had David, a partnership to help bear the weight. And unlike me, she'd been raised with the tools to set boundaries, having seen them modeled by our parents her entire life. That night, I noticed a letter in my mail pile with my mother's distinctive handwriting. I set it aside, not yet ready to read whatever justifications or manipulations it contained. Instead, I went out onto my balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. For the first time in memory, I was sleeping through the night, uninterrupted by anxiety dreams or insomnia. My appetite had returned, and with it a few pounds that softened the gauntlet stress had carved into my face. Colleagues commented on my energy, my creativity, the fresh perspectives I brought to meetings. The following week, I received a video call request from Eleanor. Curious, I accepted. Denver agrees with you, she observed. You look well. I am well, I confirmed. How are things at Hartman? Productive. Your replacement is working out, though she lacks your attention to detail. She paused, expression serious. I should mention that your parents contacted the firm asking for your new address. My stomach tightened. What did you tell them? That it's against company policy to disclose personal information. They were quite insistent. Your father especially. Thank you for not sharing it. Eleanor nodded. I gathered there were personal reasons for your relocation. It's not my business, but if you ever need anything. I appreciate that, I said, touched by her unexpected support. After the call, I messaged Jessica, asking her to reinforce with our parents that contacting my workplace was unacceptable. Her response was immediate. Already handled it. They won't do it again. Perhaps the most unexpected development in my new life was my neighbor, Noah Thompson. We'd met in the elevator my first week, both carrying grocery bags. He was a software engineer, transplanted from Seattle 2 years earlier, with an easy smile and no expectations. Our friendship developed naturally, casual conversations in the lobby, evolving into coffee at the corner cafe, then hiking excursions on weekends. He didn't press for details about my past, accepting my vague explanations about wanting a change of scenery. In return, I didn't question the sadness that sometimes flickered across his features. 6 months after my arrival, I stood on my balcony watching the first snowfall, a cup of hot chocolate warming my hands. My phone buzzed with a text from Noah. Snow day hike tomorrow. The trails look magical after a fresh powder. I smiled, typing back my acceptance. Behind me, my apartment glowed with warmth, smaller than my Chicago home, but truly mine in every way that mattered. On the wall hung a painting I'd commissioned of the Chicago skyline, my way of honoring the city that had shaped me without being defined by it. I was not the same person who had overheard that devastating conversation half a year ago. That Chloe had been defined by her role as the dutiful daughter, the family ATM, the responsible one. This Chloe was defined by her own choices, her own priorities, her own joy. The path to this freedom hadn't been easy or clean. There were still moments of doubt, flashes of the old guilt, but they were growing fainter, overwhelmed by the evidence that I had made the right choice for myself and perhaps, ultimately, for everyone involved. December arrived with a flurry of snow and holiday decorations. My professional life had exceeded all expectations. 3 months after joining Westbrook Financial, I'd been promoted to team lead, managing 6 analysts and reporting directly to the regional director. Personally, I'd found my footing. My apartment, while more modest than my Chicago home, felt authentically mine. I'd purchased it in October, using a portion of the proceeds from the Illinois house. At 1,500 square feet, it was the perfect size for one person who valued quality over quantity. My friendship with Noah had deepened into something more, though we were taking things slowly. Both of us carried baggage from previous relationships. He'd been through a difficult divorce. I, the complex entanglement of family dysfunction. We'd agreed to be intentional about our connection, building a foundation of honesty and respect. Every Saturday morning, I video called with Jessica and her children. These conversations had become a highlight of my week, a way to maintain family bonds that were healthy and reciprocal. Her oldest, Liam, was applying to colleges and often sought my advice on financial planning. The younger two, Harper and Scarlett, simply enjoyed showing me their latest art projects or soccer trophies. My parents, meanwhile, had made multiple attempts to reconnect on their terms. Email forwards with passive-aggressive subject lines like, "In case you're interested in your family," arrived regularly. Phone calls came on holidays and birthdays, filled with subtle guilt trips and thinly veiled criticisms of my abandonment. I'd finally read Brenda's letter, finding exactly what I'd expected, a masterclass in manipulation disguised as maternal concern. "We only want what's best for you," she'd written. "Families should stay together, especially as parents age. Your father and I aren't getting any younger." Dr. Richardson, who continued our therapy sessions via video, helped me navigate these boundary violations. "Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation," she reminded me. "You can release the anger without allowing them back into a position where they can harm you." As Christmas approached, I faced a decision about holiday plans. Jessica had invited me to Chicago, offering her home as neutral territory. Noah had suggested a ski weekend in Aspen. A third option beckoned as well, hosting my own small celebration in Denver with local friends. "What does your gut tell you?" Dr. Richardson asked. "I'm not ready to see them," I admitted. The thought of sitting across a table from my father, pretending everything is fine. "I can't do it yet." "Then don't. Your healing timeline is your own." I chose option 3, decorating my apartment with tasteful but festive touches. A small tree in the corner, twinkling lights along the balcony railing, handmade wreaths. I invited 8 people for Christmas Eve dinner. The day before, my doorbell rang. A delivery from Jessica. Inside were handmade ornaments from the children, along with a card that brought tears to my eyes. We miss you, but we understand. Building your own traditions is important, too. Love you, sis. I hung the ornaments prominently, photographing them to send with my thanks. As I was about to put my phone away, it rang, a Chicago number I recognized immediately. My father. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something prompted me to answer. Hello, Chloe. His voice sounded older, smaller. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Dad, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Your mother and I, he began, then cleared his throat. We're in our own place now. A small apartment near Jessica. That's good. I'm glad to hear it. An awkward silence stretched. I waited, refusing to fill it as I once would have. Things have been difficult, he finally continued. Financially, the rental market here is worse than we expected. We need. There it was. The real purpose of the call. I'm sorry to hear that. Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear his internal struggle. Pride wrestling with need, expectation battling with the new reality. Chloe, I know things ended badly, but we're your parents. We need. Dad, I interrupted gently but firmly. I'm not in a position to provide financial support anymore. My life has changed. My expenses and priorities are different now. But family helps family, he insisted, the familiar guilt tactic emerging. Yes, they do. And that help can take many forms. I'm happy to stay in touch, to rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect, but my financial support is no longer an option. The silence that followed told me everything about his true priorities. When he spoke again, his voice was tight with suppressed anger. I see. Well, Merry Christmas then. Merry Christmas, Dad, I repeated, ending the call before he could continue. I stood on my balcony afterward, watching snow fall gently on the city below. 6 months ago, that conversation would have left me devastated, racked with guilt and self-doubt. Now, I felt only a calm certainty that I had made the right decision, not just for my financial well-being, but for my emotional health. Christmas Eve arrived with perfect Rocky Mountain clarity, brilliant blue skies contrasting with snow-covered peaks. My apartment filled with delicious aromas as I prepared dinner, something I'd once done out of obligation, but now enjoyed as a creative expression. Noah arrived early to help, moving around my kitchen with comfortable familiarity. Your dad called again, he asked when I mentioned the conversation. Trying the direct approach this time, I confirmed, checking the roast. At least he was honest about wanting money. And you're okay with setting that boundary? I considered the question seriously. Yes. For the first time in my adult life, I feel like I'm making choices based on what's right for me, not what others expect or demand. He smiled, his expression warming. That's what I admire about you, Chloe. Your courage to redefine yourself. As my guests arrived, bringing wine and desserts and holiday cheer, I realized I'd created something precious here. A chosen family, built on genuine connection rather than obligation. We laughed, shared stories, exchanged small gifts, celebrated the season with joy, uncomplicated by past grievances or hidden agendas. After everyone had gone home, Noah lingered, helping me clean up despite my protests. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small wrapped package from his jacket pocket. Not exactly a Christmas gift, more of a new tradition gift. Inside was a beautiful compass, its brass case engraved with mountains and stars. For someone who found her true north, he explained, who had the courage to navigate by her own stars. My phone rang before I could respond. My parents, calling for their annual Christmas check-in. In previous years, I would have immediately answered, abandoning whatever I was doing to fulfill my filial duty. This time, I looked at Noah, at the compass in my hand, at the home I'd created for myself. I'll call them back tomorrow, I decided, silencing the ringer. Tonight is for new beginnings. As I stood on my balcony later that night, Noah's arm around my shoulders, watching the city lights twinkle beneath a canopy of stars, I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me. The journey from Chicago to Denver wasn't just a move across states, it was a reclamation of my soul, a fierce declaration of my worth, and a brutal but vital lesson in the chasm between obligation and true love. I sold a house worth hundreds of thousands, but what I gained in return, that was truly priceless. The unwavering knowledge that I deserved better, the strength to draw unshakable boundaries, and the freedom to finally build a life that honored my own heart. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were in my shoes, would you have confronted your parents head-on or chosen an exit strategy like mine? Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might just be the beacon someone else needs. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about life's toughest lessons. Remember, true family is forged in love and respect, not just in blood. Take care of yourselves.